War does not announce the moment it changes forever. It whispers it. December 1972. Northern Vietnam. Bien Son Air Defense Sector. The briefing room is too small, too hot, and thick with the smell of stale tobacco and burned kerosene. Cigarette smoke curls lazily beneath a flickering fluorescent light, blurring the maps pinned to the wall. Red grease pencil lines slice through the sky over the Capitol like surgical cuts. Captain Tran Quoc Minh stands at the front of the room, knuckles pressed against the table, eyes calm, voice confident. Tonight, he tells them, the Americans are predictable. The pilots lean forward. These are not recruits. These are men forged by years of alerts, scrambles, and near misses. They fly MiG-21 PFs, silver darts with delta wings sharp enough to draw blood from the sky itself. Interceptors, built for one purpose: climb fast, strike hard, disappear. Minh taps a photograph taken from reconnaissance radar film. B-52s, he says. 3 ship cells, straight line ingress, fixed altitudes, no fighter escort after dark. A ripple of smiles passes through the room. One pilot lets out a quiet laugh. Everyone here has trained for this moment since their first solo flight. The manuals are clear. The math is merciless. MiG-21, Mach 2 plus top speed, vertical climb like a rocket heat-seeking atoll missiles, B-52, massive, slow, straight, bright as a furnace on infrared. This isn't a battle. It's a hunt. A young lieutenant asks about defensive guns. Minh shrugs. Tail guns, old ones, manual tracking, American leftovers from another war. Nobody is impressed. They've studied the bomber diagrams. The attack geometry is flawless. Come in from below, from behind, fire from outside gun range, break away clean, the bomber never sees you. Soviet advisors seated along the back wall nod in quiet agreement. Their doctrine, hardened by memories of the Great Patriotic War, is absolute. Bombers do not fight. Bombers endure. And when endurance fails, bombers die. History says so. In World War II, heavy bombers were slaughtered when they flew without escort. Luftwaffe aces tore through American formations over Schweinfurt. Japanese Zeros shredded B-17s over the Pacific until escorts arrived. Size without teeth meant death. Technology may evolve, but gravity and human fear do not. Another pilot raises a concern. American countermeasures, chaff, electronic noise. Minh waves it away. Radar tricks, he says. They confuse missiles, not pilots, not eyes, not heat seekers. 8 engines, 8 glowing exhausts. A perfect target. The room hums with certainty now. Confidence hardens into belief. Belief becomes destiny. Call signs are assigned. Launch windows confirmed. Flight suits are zipped. Helmets lifted. Outside, the night air is wet and heavy, pressing against skin like a warning no one hears. High above them, unseen, unheard. The first wave of American bombers is already crossing the border. They fly exactly where the charts say they will. Exactly how the doctrine predicts. Exactly how history says bombers always fly. What no one in that room understands, what no doctrine, no photograph, no war memory has prepared them for, is this. Some bombers were never meant to survive by running. Some were designed to fight back. And by dawn, the sky over North Vietnam will teach a lesson that rewrites everything fighter pilots thought they knew. Next part, the flying giant they underestimated, and the man alone in its tail. In air combat, there is an unspoken rule every pilot learns early. If a fighter is close enough to be threatened by tail guns, the mission has already failed. The North Vietnamese pilots know this rule by heart. They've memorized it, proven it, lived it. Soviet briefings have been thorough, mercilessly thorough. Every weakness of the American heavy bomber has been dissected, catalogued, and reduced to diagrams and firing solutions. Fuel tanks, radar blind spots, formation rigidity, electronic vulnerabilities. And at the very bottom of that list, barely worth ink, sits the tail gun. One weapon, one man, on a machine worth more than most cities' annual budgets. A joke, really. It's like bolting a revolver to the stern of a battleship and calling it defense. Something to make commanders sleep better. Something to give crews the illusion that they aren't completely helpless if something slips through the layers of doctrine. The pilots have read the history. In Korea, B-29 gunners sometimes scratched paint, sometimes clipped a wing. Rarely more than that. Nobody remembers a supersonic interceptor being meaningfully stopped by machine guns designed when propellers still ruled the sky. A MiG-21 doesn't fear bullets. It fears missiles, and it fears mistakes. The closing speed tells the story. 800 miles per hour, nose to tail. At that velocity, a gunner has seconds, less than seconds, to see, track, fire, and hope. Hope is not a strategy. Physics always wins. Fast kills slow. It always has. That belief is ironclad. But on the night of December 18, 1972, over the darkened sprawl of Hanoi, someone is about to violate the equation. Airman First Class Daniel Moore sits alone in the tail of his aircraft, sealed inside a transparent capsule bolted to the end of 80 feet of aluminum and fuel tanks. There is no crew chatter back here. No windows forward. No horizon, only the past. What the aircraft has already flown through. The world behind him is alive with fire. Surface-to-air missiles claw upward, their exhausts carving orange scars through the black sky. Each detonation rattles the bomber like a slow-motion punch. Not sharp, not violent, just heavy, relentless. The Stratofortress absorbs the blows and keeps going. Moore's intercom crackles. Launch, 2 o'clock. Another one, 6 o'clock high. Multiple radars active. The electronic warfare officer sounds calm, but Moore can hear the strain beneath it. Numbers pile up. Threat rings overlap. The sky's crowded with invisible hands reaching for them. Then something changes. Moore's radar scope paints a new shape. Not vertical, not ballistic, not ground-launched, fast, low, intentional, 7 o'clock, below, closing, 4 miles. Moore doesn't think. He reacts. His hands move instinctively, adjusting elevation and azimuth. The tail turret responds, hydraulics humming softly, the massive aircraft subtly shifting as the weapon aligns. He feels it through the seat, like the bomber itself is turning its head to look. The gun isn't a relic. It's a 20mm M61 Vulcan, 6 barrels, electrically driven, capable of vomiting metal faster than thought can keep up. It is not meant for warning shots. It exists to erase space. The MiG pilot sees exactly what the briefings promised. The bomber is there, locked in formation, committed to its run. Big, slow, obvious. He slides into position beneath the left rear quarter, where the textbooks say, "Safety lives." His warning receiver is silent. No fighters, no locks, no surprises. This is how it's supposed to happen. He eases closer. The bomber grows until it fills his canopy. An impossible shape, wings stretching wider than cities, engines glowing like furnaces in the cold air. His missile seeker begins to sing. A low, hungry tone. 4,000 feet. 3. The fighter pilot is 3 seconds from certainty. The bomber drifts slightly. Just a whisper of movement, a correction for wind shear at altitude. To a fighter pilot, it looks like weakness. Fat aircraft do that. They wander. They compensate slowly. They survive by patience, not reaction. He doesn't adjust. Why would he? Bombers don't dodge fighters. They endure them. His missile tone sharpens, hungry now. The silhouette ahead fills his vision, vast, geometric, unmissable. 8 engines burn like torches in the cold night air. The target is perfect. Behind him, the war has already changed. In the tail of the bomber, Daniel Moore feels the aircraft settle as the turret aligns. The vibration is subtle but familiar. The cannon is awake now, waiting. He doesn't rush, he doesn't panic, he counts. When the MiG crosses the invisible line, too close to escape, too fast to rethink, Moore tightens his grip and pulls. The night detonates. The Vulcan cannon does not fire like a gun. It unleashes, 6 barrels blur into a single ring of motion, hurling high-explosive shells into the darkness faster than the eye can separate cause from effect. The sound is not loud. It is violent, a mechanical scream that vibrates through bone and metal alike. The entire tail shudders as if the aircraft has been struck by something alive. 2 seconds. That is all Moore gives it. That is all it takes. The MiG pilot sees the tracers and cannot understand them. They are too dense, too accurate, too close. This is not the scattered defensive fire his instructors dismissed. This is a wall, a moving, deliberate wall of destruction placed exactly where he is about to be. He jerks the stick instinctively, but instinct arrives too late. At this speed, there is no room left to maneuver. The first impacts tear through the right wing root, punching holes where lift is born. Another round shreds hydraulic lines. Pressure vanishes instantly, control surfaces freeze, then fire. Not a cinematic explosion, just sudden, brutal failure. Structure gives up. The wing folds inward like wet cardboard. The canopy fractures. The aircraft ceases to be a machine and becomes debris. Less than a second passes between attack and oblivion. The sky swallows the wreckage. Dawn reveals the truth with no room for argument. Recovery teams comb through a rice field northeast of the city, boots sinking into wet earth as they catalog fragments of aluminum and scorched soil. The wreckage tells its story in silence. Entry holes, exit wounds, patterns clustered where aircraft die fastest. The pilot is still strapped into his seat. He never reached for the handle. When the report reaches headquarters, the officer reading it hesitates before speaking the final line. Cause of loss, airborne gunnery. He swallows. Shooter, American heavy bomber. The radio channel goes quiet, not with disbelief, but with something worse. Calculation. By midday, Soviet advisors fill the room. They spread photographs across the table, close-ups of torn metal, shattered fuel cells, symmetrical impact geometry. No randomness, no luck. Someone tracked that fighter, someone led it, someone fired not to scare, but to kill. The advisors exchange glances, their voices dropping into their native tongue. One word surfaces again and again, spoken like a curse. Nevozможno. Impossible. But the metal disagrees. 2 nights later, the war tests the lesson. Another bomber stream enters defended airspace. Another MiG-21 lifts off into the dark. This pilot has heard the rumors. He dismisses them. One loss does not rewrite physics. Combat creates myths. Fear sharpens stories. Doctrine remains doctrine. He closes in on his assigned bomber, missile seeker alive, confidence intact. In the tail of that bomber, Staff Sergeant Samuel Turner watches the radar scope paint its familiar shape. The trigger press is almost gentle. Staff Sergeant Samuel Turner doesn't shout, doesn't tense, doesn't hesitate. He simply commits. The cannon answers with violence. 2 nights later, the impossible is no longer an incident. It is a pattern. The Soviet advisory group reconvenes under fluorescent lights that make every face look older. Technical manuals are stacked beside ashtrays overflowing with crushed cigarettes. Maps are pushed aside. Doctrine is temporarily irrelevant. Photographs cover the table. Gun camera frames pulled from MiG wreckage. Blurred silhouettes of American bombers moments before destruction. Every image shows the same thing. Big aircraft, slow aircraft, predictable aircraft. Nothing about them suggests danger. And yet, 4 pilots are dead. The first explanation comes easily. Escort fighters. It must be American fighters slipping through radar gaps, flying close enough to hide inside the bomber formations. F-4 Phantoms are capable of that. The theory fits pride. It preserves the old rules. They test it. Intercept logs, ground radar tracks, electronic intelligence, wreckage analysis. The theory collapses. No missile fragments, no fighter radar signatures, no debris fields consistent with air-to-air missiles. Only shell impacts, large ones, precise ones. The bombers are doing the killing themselves. The second explanation is comfort disguised as math. Luck. Perhaps the gunners are spraying blindly, filling the sky with metal until probability eventually betrays a pursuer. After all, even chaos hits something eventually. The advisors run the numbers. Closing speeds, aspect angles, time on target, 8 seconds, less if the fighter is disciplined. At that geometry, random fire has almost no chance of success. Not against a supersonic interceptor, not repeatedly, not with impact clusters centered on vital systems. This is not chance, this is marksmanship. The third explanation feels dangerous. Technology. Soviet intelligence files describe American bomber tail guns as relics. Manually aimed, slow-firing weapons carried more for morale than combat. That description has been true for decades, but the evidence refuses to cooperate. Recovered fragments are too large. Fragmentation patterns are too violent. Impact velocities too high. These are not .50 caliber rounds. These are something else. Something modern. Something meant to kill fighters. A junior analyst, young enough to still believe open source material matters, suggests combing American aviation publications, trade journals, contractor brochures, congressional defense hearings. The room humors him. 3 days later, nobody is laughing. Buried in technical references is a name most of them have skimmed before without interest. Vulcan, a rotary cannon designed for fighters. 6 barrels, electrically driven, designed to saturate a small volume of space with certainty rather than hope. No one ever considered it dangerous in a bomber. No one thought it could be guided. That assumption dies when they dig deeper. December 23rd removes all remaining doubt. Another MiG goes down, then another. Each engagement unfolds the same way. Approach, commit, disappear. Pilots stop arguing openly. They stop questioning orders. They simply hesitate. Missiles are fired earlier, from farther away, at ranges that favor survival over success. Shots meant to justify aborts, not score kills. Fear creeps into the cockpit, not fear of death, but fear of being seen. The Soviet team sends a priority request to Moscow. There is a delay, longer than usual. Then a response arrives. One line, specifications confirmed. Designation, ASG-21. Recommend extreme caution. The truth has been hiding behind the bomb bay all along. The ASG-21 fire control system turns the bomber's tail into something else entirely. The man in the tail does not guess. He confirms. Seated backward at 30,000 feet, the gunner grips a control stick that would feel familiar to any fighter pilot. The radar scope glows softly in the darkness, painting approaching aircraft as sharp points of light. Every return carries meaning. Range collapsing, bearing drifting, closure accelerating. This is not intuition. This is instrumentation. When the gunner designates a target, the machine begins its work. The fire control system ingests the fighter's velocity. It accounts for the bomber's own movement, slow, ponderous, but never static. It adjusts for air density at altitude, gravitational drop, lateral drift, even the rotation of the planet beneath them. Numbers become geometry. Geometry becomes certainty. Hydraulics hum as the gun mount responds, smooth, unnervingly fast. The turret sweeps through the night with mechanical calm, compensating for every evasive twitch of the bomber. The crosshairs do not wander, they wait. When the firing cue appears, it is not a suggestion, it is permission. By the 4th loss, the Soviet analysts stop pretending this is coincidence. What confronts them is not a defensive measure. It is not suppressive fire. It is not morale equipment. It is a fighter-grade engagement system grafted onto a strategic bomber, a guided weapon that replaces explosive seekers with a human nervous system. The MiG pilots believed they were attacking cargo aircraft. They were charging a weapons platform optimized for the exact geometry they favored. Close approach, rear quarter intercept, commitment before launch. Every textbook maneuver places them perfectly inside the bomber's kill envelope. The cruel irony is complete. The ammunition load seals the truth. Over 1,000 rounds sit in the drum, untouched, pristine. Most engagements consume a fraction of that. The rest waits, not for one fighter, but for many. A single bomber can defend itself. 3 bombers can overlap fire. A formation becomes a moving trap. Approach 1 aircraft and risk 3. The hunters have discovered something ancient and uncomfortable. Size does not equal helplessness, but machines do not kill alone. The system demands something rare, someone who understands time. Albert Moore unsettled his instructors long before Hanoi, not because he broke rules, because he didn't need them. In training, while others hunted targets, Moore anticipated them. He saw patterns before they were labeled. When simulators flooded the scope with clutter, false returns, jamming, split vectors, Moore's hands moved before the display finished resolving. The manuals described steps. Moore skipped them. The instructors increased complexity, reduced margins, threw impossible angles and compressed timelines. Most students degraded under pressure. Moore sharpened. He wasn't reacting to the computer. He was thinking alongside it. 6 months of training were designed to produce competence. Moore left with something else. Fusion. The ASG-21 system did not fire itself. It did not decide. It required a human to recognize the moment, the instant when a fighter crosses from threat to casualty. Moore recognized that moment instinctively. The computer could calculate lead. Moore chose when lead mattered. That difference is everything. The Soviets finally understand what failed them. Not technology, not courage, not physics, timing. Their pilots were committing to certainty while the gunner waited for inevitability. And inevitability always favors the one who can afford to wait. When intercepts turn into avoidance, and the most feared bomber in history becomes untouchable, not because it runs, but because it dares them to come closer. In the end, the machine never decides. The man does. The computer can calculate trajectories, filter noise, predict closure rates, but it cannot feel hesitation in a pilot's pull, or recognize the half-second of overconfidence that betrays an attacker. It cannot sense a bomber's subtle shudder as it slips through disturbed air, or distinguish a real radar return from a cloud of dying chaff by instinct alone. That judgment belongs to the gunner. Men like Albert Moore, men like Samuel Turner. Turner came to the tale not from theory, but from muscle memory. Years of skeet shooting had taught him something no manual could explain. Lead is not measured, it is felt. Targets don't wait. They reveal themselves only for an instant, and if you hesitate, they are already gone. His instructors wrote it plainly, does not calculate deflection, reacts to it. That was the common thread. The ASG-21 did not replace the human, it amplified him. Tail gunners lived in deliberate isolation, sealed into their compartments like neurons at the edge of a nervous system. They felt the war through vibration and sound. They heard SAM launches through the bones of the aircraft. They sensed turns through pressure in their spine. They saw the enemy first, long before the cockpit felt threatened. For hours, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. A bright return, a shrinking range, a choice. Seconds separated observer from executioner. And over Hanoi, in December 1972, they chose correctly again and again. Not twice, not exceptionally, but repeatedly. 27 tail gunners across multiple missions proved the same truth. Operation Linebacker II ended on December 29th. 11 days, 741 B-52 sorties, 15 bombers lost to missiles. The strategic result is well known. The negotiations, the pressure, the outcome. But hidden in after-action reports was a quieter revolution. 2 confirmed MiG-21s destroyed by B-52 defensive fire. Not accidents, not anomalies. Signals. After 1972, interceptor doctrine changed. Attack profiles shifted. Close-in stern approaches faded into cautionary footnotes. No one said it publicly, but every Air Force understood the implication. The bomber was no longer helpless once caught. It could see you. It could track you. And if you committed, it could kill you. The pilots who survived carried that knowledge forward, and the sky never forgot the night the whale bit back.